Okay, today I'll be predicting the Green Bay Packers record prediction. So looking at their roster, I think the Packers have a pretty good roster. Obviously, Jordan Love, I expect to continue being as good as he was last year. Um, I like Josh Jacobs. I think Josh Jacobs is a pretty good running back. Wide receivers look alright as long as those second-year wide receivers continue to develop. Their offensive line is kind of concerning, but not super like concerning. Their defense, I think they have a really good defensive line with guys like Kenny Clark, Preston Smith, Quay Walker. Linebackers, inside linebackers are okay, I guess. Definitely one of the weaker spots. But the secondary with guys like McKinney and Jair should be really good. So if your first game versus the Eagles in Brazil on Friday Night Football. Eagles to me have a very, very talented roster as the Packers do, and I think the Eagles just have the have more explosive wide receivers, and I don't really trust the Packers' offensive line against guys like Jalen Carter, so I'm gonna take the Eagles here. Then week two versus the Colts. Packers they're back in home field advantage. Colts they are a mystery team to me. I'm not sure how well Anthony Richardson's gonna do, but I do think that Packers defense is good enough to slow down um whatever Indianapolis throws at them. So I'm taking the Packers here. Then week three versus the Titans. Titans could be very good as well, as long as Will Levis does good. Unfortunately, I don't think Will Levis does good against this Packers defense, and I believe that Packers offense is better than that Titans defense. So I'm giving it the Packers here. Then you have them versus the Vikings. Vikings to me are still a rebuilding team. I don't think JJ McCarthy is going to do too well against that defensive line. And as long as Packers they do well versus that Brian Flores defense, Packers should easily smoke the Vikings here, like they have been for the last few seasons. Then you have Week 5 versus the LA Rams. Rams have first of all a big home field advantage, but similar to the Packers, they are depending on a couple of second-year players as well. Matthew Stafford is a veteran guy who might be able to figure out that Packers defense, and that Rams defense I think will do just enough with that home field advantage to take the dub versus the Packers. Then you have them versus the Cardinals. Cardinals are still a rebuilding team. They have to travel very far. Packers have home field advantage. I'm taking the Packers here. Then you have them versus the Texans. Um, Texans are another very, very good team. Their offense is definitely going to challenge that Packers defense a little bit. Um, Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell, Nico Collins, Joe Mixon should cause problems for that Packers defense. But that Packers offense, I kind of like better than the Texans defense a little bit. I think Jordan Love's going to have a good day. It's going to be a shootout, but I'm going to take the Packers here since they have home field advantage. Then week 8 versus the Jaguars. Jaguars, depending on how well that Packers team does versus the Jaguars, um, I'm gonna have to take the Jaguars. I think they have too much of a big home field advantage. I think Trevor, he's not that good, but he's not that bad. So I'm taking the Jaguars here. Then you week 9 versus the Lions. Packers and Lions are a very tough rivalry. They play each other tough, and I think Packers are going to take the first game. Lions just as talented, if not more talented than the Packers. They're going to split, just like they did last year. So I'm taking the Packers here. Then you have the bye. Then you have the Bears. Bears another tough team. Bears, they did definitely improve. Their defense was starting to look better last season, and I expect them to continue to be good. And Caleb Williams is still a rookie quarterback, so he might struggle versus that Packers defense, especially Packers coming off a bye. So I'm going to take the Packers here. Then you have them versus the 49ers. 49ers definitely knocked off the Packers last year in the divisional round. I don't see that happening again. I do think that Packers defensive line will cause problems for Brock Purdy, so I'm going to take the Packers here, especially with home field advantage. Then week 13 versus the Dolphins. Packers have a huge home field advantage. Dolphins have to travel to Green Bay on a short week. That's very big disadvantage for the Dolphins. And I think that alone will cause the Dolphins problems late in the year, so I'm taking the Packers here. Then you have week 14 versus the Lions, both coming off Thursday night games. Like I said, I believe they're going to split, so I'm taking the Lions here. Week 15 versus the Seahawks, to me, definitely a trap game for the Packers. Seahawks, they do have somewhat of an explosive offense, especially if Geno Smith can start doing something. But I believe Jordan Love and that Packers offense will be too much for the Seahawks, so I'm taking the Packers here. Then you have the Saints versus the Packers. Saints to me just don't have enough offensive firepower to keep up with the Packers, so I'm going to take the Packers here, especially with home field advantage. Then Week 17 versus the Vikings. Like I said, I really do not like the Vikings at all. So I'm taking the Packers. And then Week 18 versus the Bears. I do believe that the Bears will steal a game from the Packers this year. Their team is just too talented not to, so I'm taking the Bears. So ending up the Packers going 12-5, 14 in the division, 8-1 at home, and 4-4 away.